Hello, everyone, and welcome to Body Bags. I'm your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Horror Heaven77. And it's going to be a second, okay? Just my multiple personalities are acting up tonight, so it's going to take a minute for me to get to the review. I'm trying to tell you, man, the best things in life are boobies and beer, okay? Those are the only things you need to survive, man. That's all you got. That's all you need. That's everything you need, all right? Just boobies and beer, and your life will be great. And I'm trying to tell you, okay, we don't need all this stuff cluttering up the place. All right, we could be perfectly happy if we went for a more minimalist lifestyle. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay, not to mention, too, we probably feel a lot better if we went vegan, gluten free, and maybe even consider giving up alcohol, sugar, and nuts. Okay, so I'm just thinking, all right, don't bite my head off. Okay, everybody, sorry about that. We'll get back to it. Now, speaking of multiple personalities, that's what's bringing me to reviewing the movie that I'm going to review tonight. The movie that I'm talking about came out in 2019. Even though Mischa Barton is on the cover as the star of the movie, really, she kind of has a small role, but still a pretty prominent role in the movie. The movie is called The Basement, okay? And I know what you might be thinking. All right, you might be thinking that, well, Mischa Barton, this is probably like some PG-13 kind of a thing, like a PG-13 Blumhouse kind of a movie or something like that. No, actually, we're in luck. Okay, this movie, it's not rated, and I do admit the first time I saw it on Netflix, but I honestly could not believe how blown away I was by it. And then I just found the DVD and picked it up pretty cheap here recently, so I'm really happy to have this movie. And the short story is I really like this movie. This movie is really good, and I highly recommend if if you're into good acting, if you're into interesting storytelling and character arcs and character development. I honestly recommend this movie. Now I know some people may disagree with me, but wait, I'll get to that. Okay. Now, and I know some people might be thinking, oh God, Mischa Barton is in this thing. Okay, so she was on The Hills, she was on the OC. Let's not forget, okay, she was also in The Sixth Sense. But so if you're sitting here thinking like, oh boy, it's gonna be one of these kind of movies, no gore, none of that stuff. Actually, this movie does surprise you. There is a good amount of gore in this. I mean, it's not going to be Peter Jackson levels of gore, but there is actually some pretty good gruesome, um, cringe-inducing moments, and make you kind of whinge in your seat kind of moments in this movie. And the story is about Craig Owen, who is played by Cayleb Long, um, and he's he's a famous musician. He's known for doing these kind of lovey-dovey kind of pop songs and things like that. He's you know when we first see him in the beginning of the movie, he's playing the piano, and his wife, who's Kelly, played by Mischa Barton, she comes up and she explains to him that they're out of Champagne. They live in this beautiful Beverly Hills mansion, and so she asks him if he would go to the store and pick up some more champagne for them. So he does. He takes his fancy sports car, drives to the store. Well, this big van that says Billy the Clown, I think it said, pulls up right beside him. So he goes in, gets his champagne, and then when he's getting ready to get into the car, the side door on the van opens, and someone reaches out, grabs him, pulls him into the van, and then the next thing that we know, he's in a basement. Hence the title of the name, The Basement. And there is one thing that is misleading about this cover here. You see here where he's got his hands tied behind his back, sitting in a chair. No, actually, when you watch the movie, he's sitting and he's got his hands pretty much like tied down to basically a child's school desk. And then we're introduced to Billy, played by Jackson Davis, who honestly, this guy really knocks it out of the park in terms of acting. And now, while it says here, a cross between Silence of the Lambs and Split, maybe not so much the Silence of the Lambs. Yeah, I could kind of maybe see that, but definitely Split, because what we find out is that Billy, he he comes down and he has these multiple personalities. In the beginning, he comes down, he's Billy the Clown. Then he comes down, he's like a 1940s detective, or he comes down, he's like a prison inmate. And it's like, his whole thing is throughout the course of this night, he's torturing Craig. And what we find out though is interesting. It's like it's not just random torture. It's just not torture for the sake of just a crazy guy doing crazy stuff. What we find out is that we're leading up to something. So at least in this movie there is a lot of talk. It's a very dialogue heavy movie. Not too much action. I'm going to be honest with you, but what we come to find out is that Billy, for whatever reason, has decided to make Craig basically be him, because he keeps calling Craig Billy. But what we start to find out as the personalities come and they talk to him, we start to see that Billy is letting Craig know who he is as a person, even though he's basically known as the Gemini Killer. So my girlfriend's Gemini. I better not let her know that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But so anyway, uh, so so anyway, we find out that pretty much that Billy is the Gemini Killer, but he's put Craig into this position, making him be the Gemini Killer, and that he plans to execute him at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, one thing that's really the Gemini Killer in this movie has an interesting way of killing people, which is he cuts everybody's heads off with a blowtorch, and that's his MO, and that's what he's known for. Also, I believe they mentioned too that he carves the symbol of the Gemini in them or something like that. I think I don't remember that part too much. But anyway, so through the course of the night, you got this real cat and mouse game of Craig and Craig and Billy. They're at odds with each other. They're both trying to get into each other's heads, especially Craig. He's One thing you're going to notice throughout the movie is that Craig is really, really hoping that he can get under Billy's skin, that he can get inside of his head, and maybe make Billy decide not to go through with his plan to execute him at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, but as the story continues on, he keeps showing up as these different characters. He keeps showing up as what's supposed to be Billy's father, was supposed to be like Billy's mother, showing up as a priest, showing up as, so on, so forth. And, the two actors really, really do a great job. They really have this, great chemistry together. Cayleb Long and Jackson Davis. Jackson Davis, now, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from James McAvoy in Split. James McAvoy gave a great performance. I'm not dissing on him in any way, but Jackson Davis, in my opinion, he really does a great job in this movie. He is very compelling. You can't help but watch him. He's so interesting and he's so invested in it, and he's doing the best that he can. You know, and every character that he's playing is very interesting. He tries to come up with different speaking pattern or speaking inflections for each one. He tries different accents, things like that. Even at one point in the movie, he shows up, as the mother. He shows up wearing a dress and a wig and everything else. So I mean, he goes all out for his performance. I will give him that. And honestly, I think his performance alone is worth watching this movie for. Now, Cayleb Long, unfortunately, he doesn't really have that much to do. More or less, he's just kind of there to play off of Billy, but still he gives his best shot. And being a British actor, British actors are usually some of the best actors anyway. So, but in the meanwhile, while this is all going on, it all happens over in the span of one night. So like maybe 8 hours, let's say. But meanwhile, while this is going on, Kelly, Mischa Barton's character, she suspects that Craig has been having an affair with her best friend, Bianca. And even though we find out at the beginning of the movie that, yes, Craig is in fact having an affair with Bianca. But, Mischa, or Kelly, her character, is starting to try to, she kind of suspects, but she's not entirely sure. But she tries to put all of this aside. So she's kind of doing two things at the same time. One time she's trying to find her husband and trying to get him back safely. She's calling the cops, she's calling the hospitals, things like that. She's doing whatever she can do. But at the same time, Bianca comes over to comfort her and stuff like that. And she kind of starts asking some prying questions like, "Where were you Thursday night?" And why would you have my at one point she's all like, "What if we try calling my husband from your phone?" And she's like, "Okay." And she's like, "Why would you have my husband's number in your phone anyway?" And she's like, "Well, we're friends," and things like that. So it's like, I'm not going to tell you. No, I'm not going to tell you whether, whether her suspicions come to be true, which, I mean, even though we already know, but, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other whether the character finds out. But also, too, there are a couple of fun and interesting little twists at the end of this movie, which, I think it makes it a fun watch. And I mean, I know usually people really diss on the horror movies that they put on Netflix, but I was really glad that I found this one. And personally, I've seen quite a number of good horror movies on Netflix. Some of them I've even reviewed on this channel. But anyway, honestly, I really do like this movie. It definitely has kind of a Saw. There is a definite bit of a torture porn thing feeling in this movie. It definitely has kind of a little bit of a Saw vibe, a little bit of a Hostel vibe to it. And there is some blood and gore. You do get to see some limbs cut off and things like that. Um, you get some great dialogue. You get some interesting character moments, some really good powerhouse acting. And that's interesting, like when you can get a horror movie that, okay, so maybe it's not the bloodiest, goriest, gorehound horror fest of all time, but, there is at least a decent amount of blood and gore in it. And you also get an interesting story with interesting characters and, an interesting back and forth, between characters. And that's why personally I recommend this movie. And, but that's just my personal take on it. And anyway, so that's pretty much going to do it. So yeah, The Basement, I say check it out. Okay. It's, you're going to get some blood and gore, some schmutz, as Tom Savini would say. You're going to get some of that. And, yeah, and you get some really good acting at the same time too. And that's one of the things though too. This is what's kind of nice about this is a modern horror film, in my opinion anyway, a modern horror film where you get, interesting characters, interesting dialogue. When a lot of modern horror films nowadays, the characters and the dialogue and the story are like some of the least interesting things about it. So, I don't know. It's up to you, but I would say definitely give it a watch, at least check it out, see what you think. So, anyway, that's going to do it. So, if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, leave it a like. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to the Body Bag channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. We got different guys doing different stuff. Everybody's great. I'm the Friday reviewer, and yeah, we got. I think next week is Label Week. I think we're doing Wild Eye, so that's going to be fun to do. And more theme weeks and everything else. So check everybody out, and that's it. Have a good night, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.